Well, after what seems like an eternity away, after a bye week last week, me and Nick are back, or Nick and I are back. Let me break there before I get jumped on. Great to be back with you guys. It felt like a long time away, but Ole Miss got a well-deserved rest last week. Nick and I got a rest with them, and we are more ready than ever to talk about Ole Miss and Alabama, a huge matchup coming up in Mississippi this weekend, as Ole Miss looks to have a huge crowd and a huge win over the mighty Alabama Crimson Tide, who are coming to town following a disappointing loss at LSU. Ole Miss can relate to that, just not quite as close of a game as Alabama played with them. Nick, it's unfortunate because Ole Miss doesn't control their own destiny anymore when it comes to Atlanta. Now, if you look at the season goals for Ole Miss, their goal probably was realistic goal was never to get to Atlanta. It was, again, to get to a good bowl game, New Year's Six type of bowl game. Ole Miss coaching staff, I'm sure, are realistic in that regard. That was their season goal, 10 wins, good bowl game. Now, even that is out of your control for the moment because you have LSU at the top. You've still got Alabama right there, and you've got Tennessee on the other side now, who's kind of up in the air about where they may or may not end up. This is not as big as we were hoping it was going to be as far as ramifications of this game. But if you're Ole Miss, it doesn't get any more must win against Alabama than it does this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think for both of these teams, it's almost like a do or die, because Alabama, if they lose, they've 3 losses. And I don't know when's the last time they've done that, probably almost 20 years. So, and then Ole Miss, and then you got that stretch with Arkansas, Mississippi State coming up. And, like you said, you can't control your own destiny. The only thing you can control is to win out and see where the chips fall. So, yeah, definitely taking it 1 week at a time and must win. Absolutely.
The last time Alabama lost 3 or more games in a season was 2010.
10?
They went 10-3.
Okay.
And they lost 2 games in last year. They lost 2 games in 2019. They lost 2 in 2013 and 2014. They don't lose multiple games in seasons. It just doesn't happen. So this will be a first for them in a long time, in over a decade, if Ole Miss pulls off the victory. But you can't put the cart before the horse. There's a lot to digest in this game and a lot on the line in Mississippi. So quick recap of where Ole Miss is at now coming into this Alabama game when it comes to what they have to do. Coming into the LSU game, obviously, about a month ago now, they were undefeated. They were sitting atop the SEC West by themselves because Alabama had just suffered a loss. Ole Miss then proceeds, however, to lose to LSU in devastating fashion. LSU dominated all facets of that game. And LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss were then all tied in the SEC standings, except LSU technically was tied with Alabama because they had the tiebreaker over Ole Miss. Alabama then plays LSU, and they lose to LSU. So now Ole Miss and Alabama both are underneath LSU in the standings, and the Tigers have the tiebreaker over both of them. So in order for Ole Miss to win the SEC West, they must win out. They have to beat Alabama, Arkansas, and Mississippi State in back-to-back-to-back weeks, Arkansas on the road, the other 2 at home. And LSU must lose at least one of their 2 remaining conference games. They start at Fayetteville with Arkansas, who lost to Liberty last weekend. Then they go to UAB, or have UAB at home in what should be a cakewalk for them. And then they go to College Station and take on the lowly and suffering Jimbo Fisher fighting Texas A&M Aggies. Neither one of those games seem losable right now to LSU with the way LSU is playing and the way the other 2 teams are playing. Your only hope is that the environments – LSU might be riding high. They might come in and slip up and have a bad game. But then you also have to win. And winning is never easy against Alabama, and that's where it starts this weekend.
Right, and like you mentioned when we were talking before, it's been 6 years in a row since we beat Bama. We did pull off those 2 back-to-back wins over them, and was it 14 and 15? So, I really like where we are right now. We had that bye week, an extra week, so 2 weeks to prepare for Bama. we can get some guys, kind of rested up that were banged up and get ready to roll. And hopefully the fans will show up, which I'm sure they will, for this Alabama game, and give them our best shot.
Yeah, Alabama dominates this series, as we both know. They lead the all-time series 53-10. It has not even been relatively close. They have won 6 in a row, and they have not been close at all. Obviously, 2016, when Ole Miss was going for 3 in a row, was close, 48-43. Ole Miss made it close at the end. But the next 5, from 2017 to 2021, 66-3, 62-7, 59-31, 63-48, 42-21. Now, granted, some of those Matt Luke years, obviously, Ole Miss was not known for defense. They weren't known for defense under Hugh Freeze either. And then Lane Kiffin's first year, he comes in, and obviously they weren't going to have a defense. In the COVID year, it was a weird year. But, all things considered, coming in 2020, losing 63-48 and putting up the amount of offense they did actually wasn't too bad. Unfortunately, they gave up a lot more on the other side of the ball. That aside, last year, of course, was the infamous get your popcorn ready headset toss at the beginning of the game, and that did not go well. Lane Kiffin was all over the TV set after that, and for all the wrong reasons, as Alabama jumped out to a 28-0 lead. Ole Miss made it kind of respectable at the end in garbage time, but it was too little too late. Of course, it didn't help with all the injuries that Ole Miss had on offense either. Regardless of that, Alabama was just more prepared to play that game than Ole Miss was. This year, you never want to say this about a Nick Saban team. Obviously, it's very hard to say this, especially when that Nick Saban team has beaten you 53 out of 63 times, and they're on a 6-game winning streak.
Right.
This is the year. If you're going to beat Alabama,
absolutely,
and if you're going to make it close, if you're going to finally get over that hump for the first time since 2015, this is the year.
Yes.
This is the, and I say this loosely, worst Alabama has looked in a long time. We are not used to seeing an Alabama team look somewhat lost on the field like they did in Baton Rouge last week. But Alabama off a loss is never fun to play.
Yeah, not at all. And, you kind of mentioned it that, this is the, like you said, quote, worst team. They're still a very good team, but, they don't have all the talent that we're used to seeing. And they kind of have some they're vulnerable in the secondary. And I think, you look at Will Anderson and, he definitely stands out. But other than that, they might have 1 or 2 guys, but not used to the, first-round draft picks every year like you're seeing with Georgia now. They've kind of stolen that that limelight, of having those hard-nosed defensive, and then you're used to seeing, the Jalen Waddles, Devontae Smiths, Amari Coopers on the outside for Alabama, and they don't really have one of those guys. They got a running back that, is really their hard hat, do-it-all kind of guy. He leads their team in receptions and also their leading rushers. So, Bryce Young has less to work with, but he's still Bryce Young. He's a magician. He can, you saw him last week try to do that no-look pass against Alabama, but it got intercepted. So, he's human too. And I think, you kind of look at this team, and comparing to years in the past, you can say that, like I just said, they're human. They're beatable. They have vulnerabilities, and they're just not used to what you're used to seeing from Alabama. So, like you said, I think if any year is going to be the year, it's going to be this one, coming off of a bye with the run game and the way that it looks. I think that if we can play to our strengths, we should be in a good spot.
Yeah, and you mentioned Will Anderson. We're going to get to him for sure because that dude is just – he is on another level as far as a defensive player. Alabama has only played they've only played so many games coming off a loss. They don't lose very much. I'm trying to find the stat. I had it a moment ago. But I believe they've had over the last 10 years 5 games where they've come off a loss. Over the last 10 years, they've only had 5 games coming off a loss, and they've won all 5 of those games. And Alabama has not lost back-to-back games since 2013 when they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl and then also lost the Sugar Bowl in the same year. So that's the last time they lost back-to-back games. They don't lose more than 1 game in a row. They don't lose 3 games in the season.
Right.
Now, by the numbers, if you have pros and you have cons, and obviously
Absolutely.
when you look at the first few stats, Ole Miss is okay, all right, So
Yeah.
obviously the thing that stands out the most is rushing offense. Ole Miss
Right.
leads the SEC in rushing offense, and they're third in the country in rushing offense. The only two teams that are higher than them in rushing offense are Air Force and Army, and those are triple option teams that don't do anything but run the ball, and obviously is significantly less competition that Ole Miss faces on a weekend. And look, hey, go Army. I'm an Army guy. I was in the Army. No disrespect. They don't play the same competition Ole Miss plays week in, week out. They just don't. And
different type of football.
Yeah, completely different style of offense.
Right.
Ole Miss has 2,407 total yards on the ground compared to Alabama's 1,823. Ole Miss has 26 touchdowns to Alabama's 19, and Ole Miss averages 267 yards on the ground per game to Alabama's 100 or 202, I should say. So Alabama's number 23 in the country as far as rushing offense. They're number 4 in the SEC. Ole Miss is number 1. But then on the flip side of that coin, rushing defense, on the other hand, Alabama's 11th nationally. They've given up a total of 936 yards. A total of 936 yards through 9 football games. You compare that with Ole Miss, they've given up where's it at? I lost my place there. 1,402 in comparison to that. Ole Miss is 79th nationally in rushing defense. Alabama is 11th. Alabama's only given up 9 touchdowns on the ground, and they only give up 104 rushing yards a game. Ole Miss, conversely, has given up 11 rushing touchdowns, so not that many rushing touchdowns, but they give up 155 yards on the ground per game. So Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy that Alabama is going to look to in this contest. If you're Ole Miss, you have got to fix the other side of the ball on the rushing game, and because like we talked about against Texas A&M, you really only got to stop one guy, and that's Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, you're right. And they move him around a lot, and I'm a Saints fan, so and he reminds me a lot of Alvin Kamara. They kind of move him around a lot. He catches the ball at the backfield a lot, and even from the slot, sometimes they put him out wide. So it's kind of one of those games where you got to before snap you got to find number one, and then go from there. Kind of like we said 2 weeks ago with Akaney, you got to know where he is, and if you can, you're not gonna stop him. You have to limit him. You have to limit him and make Bryce Young, go to his second, third read even, or decide that he's got to pull the ball. And he can move, he can run around a little bit, but he's no Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
he's not quick. He's not, or I'm not going to say he's not quick, but he's not as quick as Jaden Daniels. Not as big. So and that's where when we get out in space, making those tackles like we've there's been struggles there. And if we can get that under wrap, tackle and stop the run to some extent, limit big plays, I think that's where you'll see our defense come. I think it's been more of a bend but don't break defense like we've been used to. It's nothing, like the 2014 defense, which was, I think, third or fourth in the country in points per game, 13 points a game or whatever it was.
There were some dudes on that team.
Absolutely. And it's nothing like that, but if you can limit the big plays and make them have methodical drives, make them drive the ball down the field and give the offense a break, because they're going 90-0 when they've got the ball. And we've talked about reverse, our guys on offense giving the defense a breather. But I think, if you can get Alabama to get some long sustained drives and hold a field goal here and there and go on offense and, do what you want to do, run the ball. I think, like I said, we'll be in a good spot because whenever the teams that Alabama has lost to, they've been running the ball well, 5 to 6 yards a carry.
Yeah.
And the 2 games that they've lost also, they've been very unbalanced. They've been pass heavy. Teams have stopped the run. So if you can run and stop the run, you're going to be in a good spot. You should have a close game. And it seems like to me, Alabama, I heard it, I think yesterday or the day before, they have their 2 losses are by a combined score of 4 points? I think it's 4 points.
Yeah, they lost by 1 to LSU, and then they lost by 3 to Tennessee.
Yeah, 4 points. And I think they don't have that finish that Alabama, you don't normally see them, like last year, they finished on us. They were up 28-0 and they didn't stop like you've seen us do a few times this year. they don't have that as much of the they have the talent, but not as much. And I feel like the maturity isn't there. The leadership maybe is a little lacking, and they don't have that finish like they normally do. So, they let you hang around like they have to some teams this year, you'll have a good shot.
Yeah, and you're right. We're used to seeing so much more discipline from a Nick Saban
Yeah.
team, and they've committed a ton of
Penalties,
penalties this season. We need that version of Alabama to show up in Oxford for sure. Those self-inflicted wounds.
Absolutely.
But going back, like you were saying, we were talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, and obviously that's their guy, and the teams. You got to, if you limit him and then rush the ball well on offense, you've got a really good shot. That's what Tennessee was able to do. That's what LSU was able to do. Jahmyr Gibbs has 807 yards on the ground for Alabama. No, the next closest guy has 341. That's Jace McClellan. I'm sorry. It's all Gibbs on the ground. Whereas if you look at Ole Miss, they've got Judkins with 1,064, Evans with 692, Dart with 539. They got three guys that are already that are in that same range, and Gibbs is the only one for Alabama. Bryce Young, he doesn't run that much. He's only ran for 216 yards. He's not going to. He doesn't want to scramble a lot. He will get out of the pocket, but he always wants to find somebody downfield.
Right, extend the play.
And if he does run, he's going to slide.
You
have to be very disciplined defensively. He's going to slide every time unless he's got a wide open route to the end zone. He is either going to go out of bounds or he's going to slide. He doesn't take hits. So you've got to be very aware of that. So the discipline on Alabama hasn't been there. We've seen that issue, though, with Ole Miss as well a couple times. Yeah. Just some dumb penalties, especially outside the play. If you're not involved in the play, don't make a stupid penalty. Don't hold. Don't grab a face mask. Don't do something out front. Now, SEC officiating, we all know they're horrible, but you can't put the games in front of or in the hands of the officials. You just can't do it. So you can't make those little mistakes because Alabama will take advantage of them just like LSU did very easily when Ole Miss made the mistakes in Baton Rouge. Now, obviously, on the other side of the ball, Ole Miss, as far as passing, they haven't done it as much as Alabama. So Alabama is going to be more of a passing offense. Ole Miss so far has been more of a rushing offense. You mentioned the secondary for Alabama. Yes, they are. That's one of their weaker spots. But Ole Miss has played three teams now that are weakest in the secondary, and we still haven't really seen them open it up. I'm still waiting for that game where we really open it up. The only time we really saw them open it up was Vanderbilt in the second half.
Didn't really have a choice.
And you didn't really have a choice, and they pulled away in the second half. Right. But they didn't really take advantage of it against A&M, and that's where A&M was weakest. They didn't really take advantage of it against Vanderbilt until the second half. And even Tulsa, they didn't really take advantage of it a whole lot earlier in the season.
Right.
Alabama does not allow rushing yards. They don't. If Ole Miss is successful, they'll be really the first team that's been really successful. Even though Tennessee and LSU were able to run the ball some, it still wasn't a lot. Alabama still only gives up 104 yards a game. It's not like they're giving up gaping holes offensively. The runs they've given up were just able to set up LSU's passing offense and Tennessee's passing offense. So if you're Ole Miss, you have to find success, but you cannot live and die on that because if Alabama's not giving up the run and then you don't find the pass, Alabama's going to do what they did in 2015, or not 2015, in 2016, when they know all you can do is pass the ball and you don't have a run game and all you can do is pass the ball. They're just going to start settling into pass defense and you're not going to have much going on. So you can't risk putting all your eggs in that one basket. You're finally healthy. You know it's going to be a physical game. You don't want your running backs getting hurt, God forbid. So, you got to have a balance. And this is a game Ole Miss must find a balanced offense. You have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've said, that the teams that are balancing it out well, or at least running it well and having that good complementary game, are the ones that have beat them. And you saw A&M. It came down to the last play, and A&M. It was what it was. It was a low-scoring game. Bryce Young wasn't playing, so that you kind of put an asterisk next to that one because that's not Alabama. Without Bryce Young, Alabama is way different. And so I think like you said, talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, one other thing I wanted to touch on is he's not their prototypical running back that you're used to seeing. He's not your Derrick Henry. He's not your Trent Richardson like you saw in the years past, those big bruisers. He's, they want to get him out in space. And I think with the type of defense that we run kind of bodes well for that instead of them running it up the gut. you can kind of get some guys outside and rely on your defensive backs and linebackers that play better in space than your defensive linemen to make some plays. And so, yeah. And like you mentioned, I would really like to see us open up the pass game, because I think to this point in the season, you have to be pleased with the way Dart's play for his first season in the SEC this far. He's starting to make some better reads, better decisions, taking care of the ball when he doesn't have his own offensive lineman in his lap. So, yeah, I think if you can, it really, I know it's Alabama, and it sounds like, oh well, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's really quite simple. Run the ball and stop the run.
Yeah,
you should, and if you can do those two things, and barring some freakish miracle play or some whatever it might be, it's all there. It's there, and years past it's been, teams going into the game or wishing on a star, and this is kind of games, and it's where we want Ole Miss to be, right? With Lane Kiffin, these are the games where people are saying, oh, if they do play like they're supposed to, they've got a shot. In the years past has been, oh, no shot.
Yeah.
And then maybe that first year we beat them, okay, no shot, but hey, we did it. Yeah. So you kind of put that, and Nick Saban knows about Lane Kiffin. He knows Lane well. They know each other well. I think Lane mentioned today, how much he learned from Nick Saban, and probably took a few pages out of his book. What you've seen from what he does as an organizational standpoint. He's the face of the program. Makes all the whatever decisions that need to be made. Lane Kiffin's making those decisions.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw it. Whatever it was, Nick Saban's I think it was his Monday presser. Was mentioning some media people were asking about play calling. Whatever. Kind of trying to get a jab at play calling, and he says, "Hey, I hear every play that's called. If I don't like it, I have the right to veto it. So if there's anyone to come after, it's me for not vetoing whatever y'all want to, I'll not trying to quote him here, but that's what he was getting at. Yeah. And Kiffin's the same way. He hears every play, and if he doesn't like something, he can call it off. And then, but at the end of the day, he's the one responsible. So he's got that kind of that blueprint, you could call it, that Nick Saban has, and that's how he's running this team. And I think obviously, after winning 10 games last year, it's heading in the right spot. And these are games that you want to notably have a chance in and staying, maybe, like I said, wishing on a star.
Yeah. Lane and Nick are the head coach. There's a reason that head coach title is there, because Charlie Weiss ain't going to get fired first. Lane Kiffin's going to get fired first. Bill O'Brien ain't going to get fired first. And maybe Alabama might. But you know what I mean? Ordinary situation. Nick could fire Bill O'Brien. Lane could fire Charlie Weiss. They have that head coach in front of them for a reason. They take responsibility. All right, before we go any further, guys, as always, I got to talk up our sponsors, man. You guys love them. I love them. Dead Soxy, we'll start with them. Just fantastic, guys. I mean, you got to get your socks. I hope you guys took advantage of the bye week to buy some socks from Dead Soxy. See what I did there? Okay. DeadSoxy.com. Always go to that. You can use the code RebelWalk for 25% off site-wide all the time, win or lose. I'm serious, guys. They are fantastic. And you talk about personal service. They're going to give you a handwritten note with your order, okay? They're going to send it to you. They're going to check up with you afterwards on an email. At least they did with me. I'm assuming they do for everybody else, to find out how you like the product. These guys are fantastic. It is high quality. I'm serious, guys. I'm not just saying it. It is legitimately some of the highest quality socks you will ever wear. Check them out, deadsoxy.com, and use the code RebelWalk for 25% off site-wide anytime. And then on the other side, HottyToddyTents.com for your tailgating services. I ain't going to lie to you guys. You probably won't be able to get anything for Alabama this week. It's probably sold out. The tickets are sold out. Those tents are sold out. And you know why they're sold out? Because people love them, because people use them, because they do such a good job. Because all you have to do is click checkout and then fold your chair up when you're done. They do all the hard work for you. Check them out, HottyToddyTents.com. I'm telling you guys, you need to get your Egg Bowl reservation in now. It will be too late very soon. The Egg Bowl is going to be sold out. we might have Arkansas in between, but these are going to be sold out quick. So go to hottytoddytents.com, check them out before it's too late to get your Egg Bowl reservation. And obviously, next season rolls around, they're still going to be there. So you always need to go to hottytoddytents.com for the best tailgating service in college football. They are going to hook you up and take care of you. All right, Nick, we talked about obviously stopping the run and running the ball well. The last stopping key point that I want to make is stop Will Anderson. This guy is a beast. There is not another defensive player like him in college football, in my opinion. And I am not an Alabama fan, but he's just a different beast of a tackle. Yeah, his numbers might not look as good as some of the other defensive players on the team. If you look at Alabama's defensive stats, yeah, sure, DeMarco Hellams is actually their leading tackler, and Will Anderson's actually only got 16 solo tackles for a total of 38 if you count his assists. But guess how many tackles for loss he has? 13 for 53 yards lost, and that leads Alabama by a mile. It isn't that maybe he doesn't have the numbers that you would want to look at. It is the way he impacts the game. He is fast. He is quick. He will get past the edge in a hurry before you can even blink. As soon as the ball is snapped, he is one of the best I've ever seen at timing up the snap perfectly to get into the backfield. And Ole Miss's offensive line is going to have to stop him.
Absolutely.
Jackson Dart has not had time all season long. He's been running for his life, scrambling, trying to keep plays alive, holes all over the place in the O-line. Will Anderson is not going to show any mercy. He's going to be coming after Jackson Dart all game long. You can't just stop their run game and run the ball well. You have to give Jackson Dart time to pass the ball, and part of that balanced offense is Will Anderson. If you don't stop Will Anderson, it's game over.
Yeah,
game over.
It's going to be tough. Yeah, you mentioned that. You know, like you said, his numbers aren't there, but it's because people know about him now. You know, last season was kind of his he burst on the scene, you know, kind of was like, hey, here I am. And he's still here. And he's getting double teamed. You got tight ends or receivers chipping him, running backs chipping him. And he is getting a lot of attention. And he's going to be a top 5 draft pick for a reason. You know, he's got that. He's like kind of like Sam Williams, but a little bit more just bigger, stronger, faster, you know. And that's what the NFL is nowadays, bigger, stronger, faster. He's going to be a top 5 pick. He's going to go somewhere and play for a while. And he's a guy that you account 2 people on your offense for him every play.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, like you said, he's going to be in Jackson Dart's face all game.
Yeah.
And if that happens, you're going to be in a very tough spot. So like you said, you got to stop the run, you got to run it, but you got to stop Will Anderson. You don't do that, chalk it up. It's going to be a tough one to come back from. You know, you saw it. I'm not sure what his numbers were last year against us as far as, you know, just tackles, sacks, tackles for loss.
They were good.
I figured they were, but he was in Matt Corral's face all game.
Yeah, and he actually said Matt Corral was the best offensive player he played against all year.
Yeah.
So shout out Will. He knows his stuff.
Good guy.
Double team him and make somebody else get you. You got to double team him and let Jackson run away from everybody else, because you can't run away from Will Anderson. When he gets in the backfield, it's just a matter of time. He's going to chase you down.
He's going to run down probably our receivers, whoever. He's either going to, if he doesn't run him down, he's got help, and he's there, and you know when he's coming, because that's a big boy. And you look on the TV, and you don't even have to look at a number. You know where he's at. You know what he looks like. He sticks out, and like I said, top 5 pick, going to go somewhere, play for a long time, and probably play pretty darn well. So yeah, he's a guy that you have to be aware of, and just for a disclaimer, I thought he should have been a Heisman candidate last year, also along with Matt Corral.
Yeah, but defensive players just don't win it. We've seen that. I mean, you know, and the fact that Sam Williams wasn't an Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, you know, you've got all these debates.
All that,
so, all right. So these two teams, overall, if you look at the numbers, they're actually fairly even so far, although you have to concede the fact that Alabama has played a tougher schedule to this point.
Right.
Alabama averaging 41 points a game to Ole Miss's 37. Ole Miss giving up 21.5 to Alabama's 18.3. That's pretty simple. Rushing yards, Ole Miss leads that category with 24.07 to Alabama's 18.25. Passing is all Alabama leading the way with that with 25.23 to Ole Miss's 2,047. 7. Total plays, again, very close. Ole Miss was 669 to Alabama's 633. And then, of course, time of possession. If you look, Ole Miss averages 25 minutes a game for a total of 3 hours and 50 minutes. Alabama averages 29 minutes a game for 4.5 hours. So on paper, these two teams are extremely even if you just look at the paper, but you can't take everything in consideration just on that. We know what the business is here. It's Nick Saban. It's a business trip for Alabama. They're coming off a loss, and they don't like losing, and they don't like losing back to back for sure. And it hasn't happened in a long, long time. So, Nick, it's hard to make predictions for Alabama game because if you're realistic,
all day.
If you're realistic, you got to pick Alabama to win, right? It's Nick. It's Nick Saban, and it's Alabama, and Ole Miss has the better rushing team so far, and it's in Oxford, and they're fired up, and SEC Nation's coming to town. Although a lot of people aren't a fan of that because Paul Feinbaum doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut about trashing Lane Kiffin. But that aside, but all that aside, they're coming to town. Going to be another big weekend. It's hard to pick Ole Miss to win this game. Let's just be real.
Yeah, it is.
I mean. So I don't really know. Honestly, it's been very difficult for me to come up with a prediction here because this is Rebel Walk, man. I love Ole Miss. I've been an Ole Miss fan my whole life. There are times when I can be a homer. I try to be objective and realistic when we're on this show. And picking against Ole Miss is something that I don't want to do. I don't like doing. But if I'm looking at the history of this and the realism of this, and if you look at how Ole Miss's rush defense has really struggled and their offensive line has really struggled the last few weeks, it just makes you nervous when Alabama's coming in, especially off a loss.
Yeah, but we're coming off a bye, playing at home. I think, everything that hasn't, outside of, a COVID season with no fans, that game was pretty close for the majority of it.
Yep.
And, I feel like every year we play Alabama off of a bye, so you could throw that out. I feel like everybody plays Alabama coming off a bye. But, I think with the team that we have, our strengths versus Alabama's strengths and weaknesses, I kind of – are we going to make predictions now? You want to do that now?
I mean, hey, let's throw something out there, man. Let's just see what happens.
All right, I'm going to go Ole Miss 35, Alabama 34.
We're gonna have another
1 point game.
Another 1 point game, and Bama's gonna lose another heartbreaker on the road, for their third loss. All right, man.
Come on with the heat.
Yeah, so put the pressure on me with that one. Okay.
Yeah.
So all right, I need Ole Miss to have a balanced offense to win this game. That you just got to have. So that concerns me a little bit because we haven't really had one to this point. It's been very run heavy, with Jackson finding a few good passing plays. Jonathan Mingo just had a bye week, and he's still the number 2 receiver in the SEC. Now that's insane. So you got to get Mingo involved. You got to get Heath involved. Whoever you throw the ball to's got to catch it. But you can't throw off your back foot for no reason. You got to find all these things. Alabama, every detail matters. That aside, we're healthy, other than Trigg. Healthy, coming off a bye week. Evans should be back. It should be totally back is what you've got. Judkins, obviously. You still don't really know about Bentley, but he had a bye week. Maybe he's finally going to be able to work in some more. Right. I'm going to go Ole Miss gets a squeaker of a squeaky win, and they pull it out 31-28. And in Oxford, we're gonna go with the Ole Miss prediction, although that could be a freezing cold. Those have a history of being freezing cold takes. But it's surely they won't win 7 in a row, right? You can't give them 7 in a row.
Right.
And I think Lane's
going to Auburn's 6 in a row. We stopped them at 6 in a row.
We stopped them at 6 in a row. Let's keep it up. Hey, as Lane Kiffin said about Alabama when he was talking to those Tennessee fans, let's beat the state of Alabama again. And let's get them both this year. Ole Miss hasn't beaten Alabama and Auburn in the same season.
Yeah, but
I don't even know when.
They were the only 2 teams that beat us last week. So we got or last year. I'm sorry, last year. So we got to get our revenge. They spoiled our 12-0 season. So we got to get them back. Get Ole Miss up in those rankings.
Yeah,
keep them on the map.
Playoff rankings.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen it. If they were doing the 12-team playoff, we're in there.
And
I
we'd be
think.
in Knoxville. So what a
Hey,
what a game that would
yeah,
be if
yeah,
the season ended
yeah.
today.
College
And so
football
Justin
playoff with Lane Kiffin in Knoxville.
wanted to know if we thought the game would be high scoring. Well, I think we just gave him his answer. You said 35-34. I said 31-28. So no, not high scoring. I mean, I guess you could say 35 is kind of high scoring, but no, not like the COVID year. I don't see us giving up. Hopefully, we're not going to give up 700 yards of offense to Alabama this time around. Hopefully, it'll be a much closer game, and we don't let Bryce Young pull off any Houdini acts at the end. If it's close, don't give him over a minute to score. Okay, don't give him that long, and let him drive down the field. So 35-34. He is Nick. I'm 31-28. We're both going Ole Miss. Fingers crossed. Let's break that losing streak to the Tide, and let's get to 9-1 overall, and still have that opportunity if LSU trips up. Yeah, it's all you just got it. All you can control is what you can control. Like Mike Bianco said over and over during baseball season, all you can control is what you can control, and all we can control is win out. That's all you can do at that point. So win out, get that victory. It all starts with that. That game will be at 2:30 on CBS, and yet another afternoon game. Another wonderful afternoon of listening to Gary Danielson on the call if you're not going to be able to be there, but that's okay. It's going to be fun, and hopefully Ole Miss will rise to the occasion as they like to do in some of these big games. I don't think we're going to see any more get your popcorn ready moments this year. I think Lane learned his lesson from that one this year, and I think he's going to have a little bit more will to win this one this year after what happened last year. And I think we'll be good. Justin asked, if we pull out the win, do you see a field storming? I don't know. This isn't typical Alabama. This isn't number one Alabama. I would like to think that Ole Miss wouldn't storm the field.
Yeah, I would like us not. I would like us not to storm the field.
I would like us not to. Expect to win. Expect.
Yeah, you gotta expect.
Don't be LSU and everybody you beat now. You got to storm the field. For whatever reason. Hey, but take it as a compliment. LSU beat Ole Miss and they stormed the field over it. I always thought they were so high and mighty, but they stormed the field and they beat us. So hey, take it as a compliment.
Goes to show you what they think about us, though.
That's right.
That's a compliment. Yeah.
I hope we don't storm the field, to answer your question, Justin. I really don't want that to happen. But hey, if they do, they do. It's more power to them. Rub it in the SEC's face, take that fine and all that nonsense. Who cares? Well, let's hope for a win. It should be. Let's hope it's a fun game. Let's hope it doesn't get out of hand on the one side, unless it's Ole Miss running away with it. So we'll find out 2:30 on CBS, and Nick and I will have obviously all the coverage like we always do. The Rebel Walk will have all the coverage for you. You can always find it at the Rebel Walk on Twitter, at therebelwalk.com online. He's Nick. I'm Austin. Thanks so much for sticking with us, guys. Tuning back in after the bye week, and we'll see you on Saturday as Ole Miss takes on number 9 Alabama as far as college football playoff rankings are concerned in a big game. We'll talk to you later on, guys. Have a great night and howdy-toddy.
Howdy-toddy.